Welcome back, fellow educators. Thank you for joining me on another podcast. We are excited for distant learning for the year of 20 to 21. Now, we are going to share with you in this podcast how do we start our first day and getting ready for it, and then moving on to getting for the first week of distant learning. And as you join me on this podcast, we are going to share you resources as well as our strategy. So let's look at my distant learning. First, we have Clever, and Clever has this right here allow you to add in bookmark, and that bookmark directly to my webpage on my streamline.com, and they click on this and would take them onto the login page, and then the student will just click on Google and they log in, and that's all it is. Now, in terms of this, in addition to Clever having that bookmark, right, we also have Google Classroom. And on Google Classroom, I use it to communicate with my student on the first day, especially given the course ID and the enrollment key for that specific period. So if the students struggle in terms of not able to follow the step that we guide along, we also have PDF guide right there. Click on it, and it will show them step by step. So of course, we design so that it's open on another window, so that way the student will not be moving out of the current windows. And now if they need more help, okay, they can click on this, and that will take them to the videos from that show them how to log in. And if they are the first time using the website, they can register the account and then using the course ID and the enrollment key provided here. So it's very straightforward, okay? So now we are done with that. Once they log in, they are going to see this, and this is my teacher view. And then I'm going to show you, right? First, we have the announcement. So I'm going to guide my student through into where announcements are being posted every time when we have a major announcement. And every time I post an announcement, it will go right here. So it's very convenient for a student, isn't it? And then, of course, they can see the recent activity, but the key is the announcement right here. And then here's another cool one. You know, when with distant learning, one of the biggest challenging things to do for a teacher is that how do we provide a mainstream way of answering student questions, but also a primary method of having students to ask questions, so we don't have to answer the same question over and over again. So basically, we use an interactive forum, and basically when the student have questions, they put the question here. And the cool thing about this is that it allows our students to have a means to collaborate. Okay, because we are going to reward our student for answering other student questions, but at the same time we also reward students who are putting the time to put a question here. So we want to train our students to be ready for the real world, because in reality when we collaborate, we use some kind of platform to centralize our discussion as well as our question. So, and of course, if the question is difficult, right, or challenging for other students to answer, that's when we as teachers step in and we provide a very detailed answer, which including a video or a little podcast like this that answers the student's specific need. And the cool thing is that this question and then any answer that we provide will be open and shared to all the students. And that's the cool thing, because now the students are learning how to navigate through online to get the content they needed, right? And this will be a great tool for us to provide that meaningful support for all students. Because when we are in class, think about it, we walk around and we answer our student question and we provide this snippet, right? This little short answer. Because there is not enough time for us to work with students. Now we can have the actual time to answer a student with a very descriptive answer that they can go back and review and become very meaningful process for our student. And together we build this rapport and this relationship that we are in this together, and this is a learning process. And that's the key. Now let's go back to another one. We have attendance, and basically attendance is now count as a grade. So we take attendance, and this is separate from our district attendance record. We want to able to have attendance that count toward a grade. So that way we promote them to attend to our distant learning, and taking attendance as simple as just click, but I haven't created the attendance session yet. But I'm going to create that for every session I have. Think of this like an interactive spreadsheet or roster that we have, but we can add in comment for students that are absent, and we can document their participation in terms of during synchronous activity or asynchronous activity. So this become a very valuable document when we have IEP or when we have parent meeting with our student. So that's a cool thing, right? The key thing is to create this transparency in our class. And in our first podcast, we talked about teacher accountability, and that related to having that complete transparency in our class. So now let's go back to our class, okay? Chemistry. So that's attendance. And then right here, I also have my reference and resources. And notice for my teacher resources, I have it here and I hide it for my student. So these are like worksheet, PowerPoint that I have it for myself. So that way I can access in the future without going back and forth to Google Drive. And you know how Google Drive, sometimes when we have file like Publisher, right, or Microsoft Word, when we upload it, and when we try to go home and download it, it prevents us for whatever reason, I don't know, or it gives us a weird format. So that's something that we kind of struggle with when we try to use Microsoft Office file in conjunction with Google Drive. So now we don't have to worry about it. We just click and then download. Okay, that's the cool thing. So we don't have to go back and forth and looking for information. And then here I also have an interactive notebook where think of this hyperdoc, and basically I can organize my content, right? So I can link to my important Google form or whatever form my school has, or some kind of district tutorial that they provide for me. And then of course here I have my open source textbook, and of course I can edit this and populate this throughout the year to organize my content in a way that's easy for me to navigate. And this of course I can link. Notice how I can link and I can add a file for my Google Drive as well. So this is one way for me to keep my Google Drive content in a way that's meaningful to me and organized, and I can update throughout the whole entire year. And this is hidden from my student. Now let's go back to another one. And for resources again, I also have another one for my student. And the key thing about this is that sometimes we have strategy, right? For example, YouTube video how to show student how to record screencastify. In this case, I teach chemistry. I have linked to decimal calculator and graphing calculator, and also to the periodic table. So I don't have to repost the content in different place. My student will know that this is where I'm going to access all of the resource and the tutorial that needed, right? When I need a scientific calculator, I go here and I click on it. It will take me to the scientific calculator. So it's in one place. And the student, once they use it every day, they will recognize it. Hey, this is where I access my periodic table. So now let's go to my first week, my first unit, okay? So when we have this, we strategize so that we have unit. And before we move on, if you notice how these are like blue and highlighted, right? What we can do is this. If I turn editing on, and the cool thing about this is I have a bunch of different units like unit 2 and 3. I can plan this ahead. For example, if I look at this unit 2 right here, right? Unit 1 right here. Let's look at this one right here. So what we can do is that I can highlight this. So now this becomes the reason or the most current topic that we are going to cover in class. So my student would know right away that unit 1 would be the most current one. Because on unit 2 you wouldn't see it, but when we go to unit 1, you see it right there. Okay, you see how it has that blue highlight right there. And the cool thing about this, you'll notice these are hidden from my student, right? So it's not going to be included in the gradebook. So I want to show you what my student will see on here, on this end, okay? Now going to my student view, this is what they are going to see. Notice they haven't get any announcement yet, but when they look at this, they can click on their attendance. They will see everything in terms of their attendance. So it's in one place. So that's the key. Building that transparency will allow the student to build a student accountability at the same time demonstrate our teacher accountability. And look at this. When I click on unit 1, look at this. It's hidden from the student, the one that is not current, right? So we can control when it is going to be shown to a student. Because the worst thing we want to have is we plan ahead and then we post online and still have access to all that. That would be a nightmare, all right? And now let's go back to the teacher and resources, or in this case, resources and reference, okay? As you can see, the student can see that they have access to that notebook right there, and they have access to the periodic table. And now it's open as a different window, so they don't have to worry about, closing or opening different tabs at all. So that's convenient for them. So we're trying to design this and plan it ahead of our students, trying to reduce as much of distraction as possible. Okay, so going down here, We also have this right here. Notice how we have the table content. And basically, this is a live table content that we updated when we are on that specific topic, right? So our student will have a complete table content all the time. Now, as well, this is also its own table content. And also here, when we have distance learning, one of the biggest challenges that we face is how do we promote students to take notes and keep it in the notebook. And as you can see over here, we have a notebook which we require our students to keep throughout the whole entire year. And this is very powerful because this aligns with the table content and the activity online. So that way, when the student review at the end of the year for the final or for the test, they know exactly what page is going to be. To illustrate, so first we have the table content, right? So that table content will always be for every unit. So every unit will have a table content. And here you see that's 1-1. We allocate the first page of unit 1 for the table content. And then going down here, see how we have 1-2. And the key thing about, because of distance learning, we want to make sure that when they take a picture of the notebook, it has their name on it, the date, and the page number, and the title. Because we don't want them to be able to reuse the picture again for a different unit, right? And of course, the content's different. We would know right away. And yeah, so that's the key thing. And if you look over here, right, notice how 1-2 is lab safety notes is aligned with the content online. So when a student needs to review a practice, they can review the notes in their notebook. Now let's go to 1-3. Which is the observation notes. And here I just make an assumption just to illustrate. If the student need more pages, right, they can continue with the same page number, the same title, and the same date. So that way we don't have to worry about all this mess about page 1 must be this, page 2 must be this. We organize it based on content. And when we start a new unit, we will start with 2-1 and so on, right? And that's the beauty behind it, because now you don't have to worry about if students mess up on one unit, they can start a new fresh unit and then they can get from there. Because sometimes we know if when the student fail in a class, they feel miserable. They feel like, oh, this class is too difficult for me. So therefore they give up and they start acting up, and then you start having classroom management problem. Because you know the most troublesome kid are the kid who struggle the most in your class. That's why they act up, because they struggle. They're frustrated. Our goal is to provide a system that's flexible for them so that they feel confident that they can use it and be successful in our class. And here's the cool thing. When they take pictures, just to illustrate, okay, to you, they are going to submit their link from Google Drive. And I just want to illustrate this to you right here. So here we have this right here, okay? So what we're going to do, I'm going to go back and show it to you. Look at this right here. On my notebook, basically what I have here is this view all submission, and all the students do is they submit their URL or the link to the Google Doc of the file. In this case, this is an example, okay? So they will take a picture, and as we go through distance learning, they will take a picture with their Chromebook or their cell phone, and they will paste it on here. So although we don't have the tangible notebook on our hand, we can still grade it, right? And then provide the students the accountability that they need to take notes in a way that is based on habit or based on whatever format that allows the student to think critically. Again, distance learning is about different location. We are trying to create strategy that as if the students are in our own class. So that's a really cool thing. Now let's go back here, and of course we can provide graded. And one of the key components that when we grade a notebook, we are going to continue to update it, okay? Well, every time when we grade a notebook, whenever we feel like it, if a student make a mistake, we put 0 point. That way it reminds the student to fix it. Hey, fix this. But at the end of the unit, we will give them the point that they deserve based on what they have. Again, the goal is to promote accountability and engage them during our class. Now let's go back. Now let's go back to our things over here. Notice how I highlight this already, and then I'm going back to my student notebook just to show to you. On their grade, they see everything that we provide them. See, notice how the grade, right? Other items are hidden from them. And if you remember correctly in terms of the notebook, right, we haven't updated the grade yet, but all the activity they did is directly linked to the assignment. So they don't have to worry about, hey, Mr. Nguyen, can I make up this work? No, they have full control, and we penalize them by taking the average. So if I click on this, they're able to see this, and they can reattempt this at their convenience. They don't have to ask you, right? And they, of course, it's going to based on the average score. And that promotes them to be on task the first time. And that's the key, right? And that's the powerful aspect of it. We want to make sure that we support our student. Having student accountability is one thing, but having a meaningful way to support and intervene or provide multi-tier system of intervention, that's the key. That's the hardest thing for us to do when it comes to distance learning, because we cannot talk to our student one-on-one. But now, look at this. The student have access to this, right? They are able to see in terms of what they're missing, and they can make up the work, and that's the beauty behind it, right? Now, let's go back to our teacher end. And I want to show you what it look like on the gradebook. So over here on my gradebook, okay? And here I have set up, I can see all my students in terms of their progress. Of course, those are sample students. I can look at all the grade and complete work. And right away, you have full documentation of, oh, here, this is just a sample one that we did. But you can see how much time, how much progress they have done through your class and specific time frame. So when we have parent conference, this become a very valuable documentation and data of student learning and outcome, as well as their effort in your class. And again, going back to teacher accountability, here we have complete transparency of student learning, but most importantly is allow a student to make up the missing work and learn from their mistakes. And that's the crucial component of student learning. So let's go back to our chemistry class. Now let's go back down and look at some of the other activity that we have for synchronous direct instruction. Here we have this, okay? So basically it's an interactive video that embedded with question. And the cool thing about this, if you ever attend a Zoom meeting, you know how horrible it is, right? And what you notice is the student cannot skip through this. And think about it. If you are a student and you have to listen to this horrible low internet connection and the audio is horrendous, how would you feel like when you have to learn the content through that way? It's miserable, is boring, and is very like life sucking out of you. So what we do is we create interactive video. And in this case, we use this YouTube video that show lab safety, because for lab safety is very visual. So they play on this end, okay? So what's the question is, during live synchronous teaching, what we do is, of course, we would pause. We would gather them back every 7 or 10 minutes to show where the student achieved so far. Again, this does not replace the teacher present. We are there with them, and as we look at the live data, we can have live chat with the student. Remember, he's using Zoom or he's using Google Meet. We have that live interaction with our student. So if a student's off task, when we look at the live data, we would chat to them, right? Or we can actually call them as well. And that's a cool thing. And we can actually talk to them, okay? So that's the beauty behind it. So again, a lot of mistakes that happen after school closure is that teacher just post video and just leave it there. No, we have to show that we are there for them. And by combining with an interactive video, we provide high quality of instruction. But most importantly is provide or promote student accountability, because they cannot skip through the video and they have to answer correctly to get a point. So at the end of the session, we have a complete picture of student learning, but at the same time, through the whole entire process, we are there with them to answer student specific questions. Because you know, students hate the most when you ask them, oh, we covered this topic, do you have any question? Or, oh, thumb up if you understand this, or thumb down if you don't understand. You know they're going to put thumb up. Duh, I would do the same thing, because you don't want to look like the student who don't know the content. So now we don't have to worry about this. We can go back and look at specific question and answer that the student have difficult time with during our live session. And that's a cool thing, okay? So you have to be creative. That's one way we're being creative behind it. And of course, all the content and all the answer are being updated automatically on the gradebook. And then for other thing like this right here, what you notice here is we have a practice, right? I just want to show you what the data look like. Of course, this is a demo data, but you can see the live data at the student answer the question. And again, this doesn't have to be asynchronous activity. This could be an activity, a live activity. Well, synchronous, asynchronous, that sounds too confusing. But this could be used as a synchronous activity where we are scaffolding a student to do guided practice. And then you would allow the student to chat with each other through the live chat, through Zoom or Google Meet, or whatever platform you have to collaborate together. That's the beauty behind it. But we can create questions so that the first set of questions is in the same order, so we can get scaffold them, and then at the end, when they feel confident, we have independent question, right? And then the student will work at their own pace, and they will be self-assessed. And at the same time, because we are live with them, we can provide that intervention and that support right away. As always, you have the live data, of course. Now they know that they have to do it, because if they don't do it, they're going to get a parent call, and we provide that kind of intervention to re-engage our student. Again, the goal of distant learning, or the challenge of distant learning, is the distant part, okay? And as you figure out the strategy to make the student feel as if they are in class together with us, even though we are at different places, I think the learning will be amazing for a student as well. And that's the key of our first podcast, and hopefully we can share that with you, and then you can share with other teachers with our strategy as well. And going down here we have a survey at the end of the unit where the student have to answer a question, and we have just basically, this is not graded, okay? This is part of the survey to show how much they complete throughout the unit, and how do they feel when they are learning through distant learning. That's the key, just some kind of emotional development thing, okay, to show that we care for their learning. And that's the key. We want to build rapport. And then we have project where the student can peer evaluate each other. Then we have essay, but if you notice, these are all hidden, and we use them when we are ready in our class. And that's the beauty, we can always modify behind it. So that concludes our second podcast, and we hope that we share some strategy and some kind of input that allow you to be ready for the first day of distant learning, as well as the first week of distant learning. And if you have any other strategy or ideas, feel free to put in a comment below. And as always, our motto is working smarter and not harder, and the key to do that is working together as a team. And we'll see you next time on another podcast.